Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell Podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. We're pleased to be joined by John Edwards, of course, who will be in the number 95 GTD Pro car for Turner Motorsport. John, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
So, kind of just talk about getting this opportunity again. Of course, you were with Turner in the 8 hour at Indianapolis, but this is your first IMSA event with this team.
It is, yeah, and I'm very excited. Obviously, I had a 10-year run with Team Rahal, which was great. Something in motorsport that's super rare is longevity with a brand or with a team. So that was great. But after a full decade, I'm kind of excited about the prospect of a new challenge, a new team. Obviously still with the brand, but firing up the taco machine to go out and do the 24 hours of Daytona. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's of course, the team might be changing, but of course you still have BMW with you. What's it been like to just be a part of BMW for such a long time?
Well, it's been really great for me because obviously as drivers, I mean, you want to make a career in motorsport, you want to get paid to drive. So in a lot of ways, you'll take whoever will, or you'll drive for whoever will take you. But for me, it was really great to get on with BMW because it's a brand that I've always been fascinated by, and I talked my dad into buying an E92 M3 after I had driven one, and he was looking for a new car, and he was thinking about getting a Porsche, I think, and had a Porsche in the past when I was younger, so I talked him into getting an E92 M3 because I thought it was just an incredible car, and so it for me has been a really easy brand to be a part of because I don't have to fake it. I go to press events. I drive the company car, and it's a really easy thing for me because it's a brand that I really believe in.
Yeah. So kind of talk about just how many Rolexes have you been in now?
Let's see. Well, obviously 10 with BMW, and I did a couple with Stevenson before that, and I did my first two with Mazda. Although the first one I ever did, I never set foot in the car during the race because we had a problem. We had an issue very early on, and so I never sat in the car. So I don't know if I can count that one, but I would say I'll have to check. But if I think back, I've probably done 13 of these or so.
How, yeah, I think Andy Lally sets the record this year. I think of 21 consecutive. So
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, it'd be great to try to challenge that record, but he's keeps extending it, so it's going to take a while. But yeah, very very fortunate to have done my first Rolex when I was 19 years old, I believe. So kept that going every year and been a part of it. So I'm excited to be back.
yeah, what's it just like to be a part of this race and to see all this? And this is a 24-hour race. So, and obviously you probably have been in tons of 24-hour races, so you kind of know what to expect. What for someone that might be new to this, what do we expect from this race?
Well, I always tell people, if you're a fan and you haven't been to a 24-hour race, it's got to be top of your list. There's definitely tracks that, as a driver, I love to drive Watkins Glen. Most for really cool events and as a driver. But if you're a fan, there's nothing like having racing action going on the entire 24 hours. That it might get into a rhythm and it might be green for a few hours at a time. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a crash and there's a safety car, and all of a sudden the restart is complete mayhem. And so you have to be really on top of things as a driver. But again, as a fan, for people watching, I think it's such a cool event because 10 o'clock, whether it's green or yellow, they're sending fireworks up off the lake near the bus stop. Fans are having beers and taking a nap and waking up, and there's still racing going on. So it's a really cool atmosphere. As a driver, it's a huge challenge, obviously, because despite being a little bit spoiled in that we have motorhomes and can get a shower and sometimes have physios depending for what team or brand you're driving for. You have a big support system, but also there's nothing that can prepare you to get woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning and it's 25 degrees outside in some cases. Hopefully not this year, but I think last year was one of the coldest races on
Yes,
record. And
yeah,
you go on the golf cart to pit lane, bundled up, and you haven't gotten moving. The blood's not flowing, and you're trying to drink an espresso, trying to get going, and you think you're going to be in the car in an hour to an hour and a half, and all of a sudden there's a yellow, and they go, put your helmet on, and you got to get ready and jump in. So it's a really interesting vibe as a driver to get used to that aspect of it, of just being ready to flip the switch and jump in and be ready to go. But that's the challenge, and we all love it.
yeah. Tell me about those like midnights. What is it like to run at 2 a.m. to be inside?
So I think I love night racing. It's really intense, and you have to have a good spotter. You have to rely on people telling you the gaps, because you can see headlights, but headlights behind you. If you're driving in your car at night on the street, you can take a look in your mirror and imagine that everyone behind you has their bright headlights on, and try to judge the distance in your rear view mirror. And then, on top of that, most cars now, we don't have rear view mirrors, we have rear view cameras. And so, you're looking in the camera trying to judge the distance, and is this prototype going to dive inside? Or should I defend him? Or is he actually 10 cars back and he's not really a threat, because the lights are so bright that it's really hard to judge that distance. And so I enjoy that challenge. But I would say my favorite time to race at night is probably more around the 10 p.m., 11 p.m. time slot, where you get in and you drive till midnight or 1 a.m. Because your body's naturally, your circadian rhythm's naturally going to be tired when you get out and your adrenaline comes down and you're ready to go right to sleep. I think the hardest time to be on duty at the 24-hour races is when you're supposed to get in the car around 1 a.m. because your body's naturally going to want to go to sleep at that time, but you got to be in pit lane at 11:30 or midnight, and so you go back to the motorhome and try to go take a nap at 8 p.m. You're generally not ready to go to sleep, and so generally those guys that are on from 1 to 3 a.m. or 1 to 4 a.m. Kind of get the short end of the stick, because they're just they're going to struggle to sleep before that stint and get their rest, and then they got to still be on call and ready to go. So it's definitely interesting getting woken up at 3 or 4 and go get in the car, but that's a lot better. That's a lot better than I think being in at that kind of 12:30, 1 a.m. stint, because you just don't really have time to sleep before that.
For sure. What part is the toughest about this race? Like, is it driving? Is it trying to manage everything outside of the car? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think with 24-hour races, it's definitely a lot of, they're very much a mental game, because of both aspects of it. It's having in mind the long game, not just when you're, not just talking about while you're driving, but when you get out of the car and you're struggling to go to sleep, you hear the track go yellow. So you immediately, you might be just about ready to go to doze off, and you hear the track go yellow. And so you turn on the radio to make sure it's not your car. You turn on the radio and listen, are we still talking, or are we back in the garage? So you have to kind of manage that stress level and let yourself relax, because, if you've ever been in a race, it's really intense. But when it's 24 hours, you have to let yourself relax and accept that it's out of your control when you're not in the car. And, the best thing you can do is to sleep and refuel and replenish for the next stint. So I think, to me, that's the hard part. At the end of the day, driving wise, you have to be cognizant of the fact that it's 24, and, if there's a contentious battle, maybe it's not worth pursuing it as much as you would in a sprint race or at the end of the 24-hour race. But overall, the driving is very similar to what you would do in a standard race. It's just that you do it, 3 or 4 times in the 24-hour period. So to me, the biggest challenge is the time out of the car, and how do you get ready for your next stint? Because, in the summer, we might race every couple of weeks, but in Daytona, we're doing a full race stint that you would do as a driver 3 or 4 times in that period.
Yeah. Let me ask you, and then the final thing I have for you is, what's it going to take to win the Rolex 24?
Well, this event, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of press releases about how we're at capacity grid with 60 cars entered. And the last time that happened, I remember a lot of yellow flags. There were a lot of incidents because 60 cars entered means a lot of class interaction. We've got GTD pro cars fighting with GTD, but also getting passed by LMP2s and LMP3s. And, I think that, and obviously the new LMDH cars as well. But I think that interaction is going to be the key. So for me, it's surviving the traffic.
All right. Well, John Edwards, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us, and best of luck in the Rolex 24.
Thanks very much. Look forward to talking to you with a new watch on my wrist in a few weeks.